President of the League of Women Voters of the Holland area, and I welcome you to tonight's candidate forum. We're proud to have this opportunity for voters of both Allegan and Ottawa County to learn more about the individuals who are running for the Michigan House of Representatives in the November 5th general election. We'd like to thank the City of Holland for allowing us to use this space tonight. The League of Women Voters, sponsors of tonight's forum, is a strictly nonpartisan organization that encourages informed and active civic engagement. The League never supports nor opposes individual candidates. For more information about the League, including membership, please visit our website. One of the League's most important goals is to assist voters in making informed choices at the polls. Therefore, we bring you tonight's forum. The League provides this forum as an opportunity for candidates to express their views related to their candidacy. Statements expressed by the candidates are not endorsed or opposed by the League. Also, the League does not certify any candidate responses to the questions as accurate. Voters are encouraged to fact-check information shared at the forum. The format of the forum has been established by the League of Women Voters and was received, reviewed, and agreed to by each of the candidates. All of the candidates for the Michigan House Districts 85, 86, 88, and 89 were invited to participate. While candidates represent several different districts, they are all seeking seats in the Michigan House of Representatives. All questions will be directed to all candidates. 4 candidates are not participating. Nancy DeBoer and Tim Meyer had conflicts. You can find more about Nancy and Tim by visiting Vote 411, where they've responded to some questions. Luke Meerman and Greg Van Workham did not respond to our invitation. We appreciate the participation of the 4 candidates who are with us tonight: Abby Klomparens, Lois Maassen, Marcia Mansaray, and Brad Slagh. Our moderator for the forum is League of Women Voters member Marcia Bishop. Our timekeeper is our Voter Services Co-Chair, Paula Edwards. Questions for the candidates have been gathered from the public and League members. Now at this time, I would ask everyone to please turn off your cell phones and any other electronic communication. No cameras or recorders are permitted other than those authorized by the League. This program is being recorded and will be available in a few days on our YouTube channel. A link to our YouTube channel can be found on our website. There's a little icon in the upper left corner that makes it really easy to get to it. The video is the property of the League of Women Voters of the Holland area. Neither video nor audio clips may be copied, edited, or used for any political advertising or other purposes. We ask the members to listen carefully and respectfully and to refrain from any comments or reactions while the candidates are speaking. You'll have an opportunity to clap at the end. Our moderator, Marcia Bishop, will now outline the format, review the rules, and lead tonight's forum. Marcia?
Thank you, Barb. Good evening to all of you, and good evening to our candidates as well. We are so pleased to have you here. I'd like to share just a few things with you. First of all, I'd like to say again what Barb had indicated earlier. The forum, which has been established by the League of Women Voters, is one whose format was reviewed by all candidates. So all candidates are aware of the process that we'll be using. Each candidate tonight will have an opportunity to make an opening statement not to exceed 2 minutes. Candidates will speak in alphabetical order first and rotate the order thereafter. The timekeeper, Paula Edwards, will hold up a card indicating 30 seconds remaining and a card indicating stop once the time has expired. When the time is up, the candidate may finish the sentence. Following their open statement, the candidates will answer written questions submitted by the public and League members. candidates, and I'm not sure it's necessary to say this, but it is important that it be heard. Candidates may not make personal attacks on other candidates. Such attempts will be cut short, and as a moderator, I reserve the right to close discussion on any question. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond. We will rotate the first person to answer the question. At the end of each question, candidates will also have an opportunity to make a 2-minute closing statement in reverse order of the opening statements. We are now going to begin with the opening statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes, and we will start with Abby.
Good evening. My name is Abby Klomparens. I am proud to be the Democratic nominee to serve the 86th House District or the Greater Holland area as your next state representative. The 86th House District includes the City of Holland, Laketown Township, Park Township, and the majority of Holland Charter Township. I am born and raised here in this community, a proud graduate of Holland Public Schools, and spent my career in politics and public service. I currently serve on the Holland Human Relations Commission and its Housing Subcommittee. And in my day job, I currently work at Harvard Humane Society, which, forgive me, is why it's a bit tardy. I figured you'd all want me to shower before I show up here, smelling like cats and dogs. I am running for state representative because I have watched this community grow, diversify, and innovate in incredible ways in just my lifetime. We deserve a leader looking to push us forward to a future of inclusivity and success. We do that by fully funding and supporting the children, families, and teachers who rely on our public schools, by protecting our environment, especially our water, from the waves of Lake Michigan to the water in your tap, now and for generations to come. And we do that by continuing to incentivize businesses, large and small, to invest here, so all those who wish to call the Greater Holland area home can afford to live, work, and thrive here. Thank you.
Lois.
My name is Lois Maassen, and I'm running to represent the 89th District, which includes, it's north of London Township. It includes Allendale, Coopersville, Ravenna, that part of the North Country. I am running because of my granddaughter. She is 8 years old currently. She has 10 years before she can vote for her own interests, and I would like to know that I can look her in the eye and say that I have done what I can to assure that she has the rights that I had as a young woman, that she is part of a functional democracy, that she is part of a country that is addressing the challenges to our climate, and a community that cares about seeing all of its members thrive. I too was born and raised in West Michigan, a little further afield than Abby, but I have been in London Township for more than 30 years. I worked for a Fortune 500 company for close to 30 years in marketing, communications, product development, IT. I had the opportunity to do a lot of different things. And then for the last 15 years, I have been working independently, applying those same skills for nonprofit and small and large companies actually around the world. The things that I hear about, the things that I care about, are that functioning democracy where every vote counts and everyone has access to the polls and to solid information about what their choices are, that we are addressing the short-term and long-term implications of climate change, and that we are working to help each other in our communities to have healthy and satisfying lives. Thank you.
Marcia?
Hello everyone, my name is Marcia Mansaray. I grew up here and raised my family in this area. And as the Deputy Health Officer at the Ottawa County Department of Public Health, I've also had a fulfilling career here, working for the health of a community that I like to love. I'm running for office now for the 85th district, which is Jemison, Hudsonville, and Zeeland largely, because of just two words, Ottawa Impact. It's my inspiration. Their misuse of power through secretive decision-making, wasteful spending, and revenge politics has exposed a critical need for legislative reform in Lansing. As someone targeted by Ottawa Impact for several years myself, I'm uniquely prepared to address the wrongs that have harmed our community and eroded trust in elected officials. We can all agree that our tax dollars ought to be spent transparently. For government to be of the people, by the people, and for the people, it must be open to the people. That has not been the case here since 2023. So we must amend the Open Meetings Act, and our Attorney General agrees. The health of a place is shaped by past and present policies and practices. Our local health officers should be dedicated professionals, not political pawns. Our public health system has been tested. I want to clarify the boundaries between county commissioners and local health officers by amending the Public Health and County Commission codes so that our community remains a healthy one. With these policies safely in place, we can begin moving forward around the things we agree are important, like our water and affordable living, especially for our families. I've experienced that policy can be powerful and effective if it's good. So I work by working together. I'll work across my party, across party lines, and most importantly, with you. I'm convinced that's the way to work for the common good. Thank you.
Brad.
Hello, my name is Brad Slagh, and I'm seeking re-election to the 85th House District. A quick bio for those of you who don't know me. I spent almost 20 years in the banking industry, 5 years as a Zeeland Township Supervisor, 12 years as the Ottawa County Treasurer, and now finishing my third term as a state representative. Carol, who's here, and I have been married for 39 years, and we've raised successfully and launched our 3 children. I've been called milk toast by some on the right, especially those OI folks, and I've been called too conservative by some on the left. I guess that means I'm probably doing the right thing. The most important thing a representative has to do is to be willing to listen. I've upheld this ideal throughout my nearly 6 years representing the people of Southern Ottawa County and practiced that skill first as a banker, then in the township and county government. I've held well over 100 in-district office hours, attended hundreds of government meetings, and even more private engagements with my constituents. How can you be a good public servant if you're not willing to listen and to hear what's on the minds of those you serve? The answer is you can't. Some of the major things that I've been able to accomplish over the last 3 terms have been laws, updating our speed limit policies, laws to eliminate the unnecessary fees that the Secretary of State was charging our veterans, a law to ensure that our intermediate school districts receive their full funding, and 2 laws that I worked with local property assessors on to make our property tax laws friendlier for taxpayers. One of the things that best serves the people of the state is consistency. And I've been consistent in which party platform I choose to align myself throughout the years. I'll continue to listen and to be responsive to those I serve, no matter their party affiliation. My belief is government is not a solution to be handed out, it's a tool for people to use.
Thank you all very much for your opening statements. We'll begin the questions now, and we will start with Lois. The first question: how would you gather information and concerns from your constituents in order to bring their voices to Lansing?
I think there's huge opportunity to develop additional ways for people to connect with their representatives. I think that there are lots of organizations in the district, from chambers of commerce to a number of organizations of the Michigan Education Association, lots of groups that have different interests that could have conversations. I think being present in the communities represented is also really important, just showing up for whatever kind of event is happening. holding open office hours, coffee hours, that sort of thing. And I'm also really interested, given my background, in exploring the uses of technology to increase that connection, especially for younger voters in the district.
Thank you. Marcia?
Excuse me. It's a great question. I think it's really challenging when you get pulled to Lansing and you don't live in Lansing. So a lot of your time gets spent there. So you need to come back to your district and listen frequently there. But it's also important when you are in Lansing to have an open door in your office and someone who's answering that phone and communicating those concerns to the representative. But obviously, like these other people, when you're back, you have an obligation to attend as many things as you can, and I do see my opponent doing that, and I appreciate it. I would continue canvassing, honestly, going door to door, so that I can just ask, what are your concerns? What do you need from me? What should I know? So, thank you.
Bradley?
And let me just verify, you're asking how do we best gain information?
Correct, from your constituents.
Perfect. Just wanted to make sure I'm answering the right question. I think that some of the ideas that have already been shared are just perfect. We need to hold office hours. We need to be available in the district for people to come and see us. We need to be available for people to walk in Lansing to be able to see us. There are groups and every day that are coming to Lansing and seeking to be able to share information. We need to be able to be there to be able to do that. Going door to door is an important thing. Having technology to be able to bring stuff in is important. One of the things that I've found since I've been in Lansing is that often the state representatives' doors are closed, lights are off if we're not in session. I've asked my staff to continue to be there every day, at least one of them every day, so that we've got, if people walk in, I can get that information, and it's an important thing. So I would yield with that.
Thank you. Abby?
I spent most of my career as a political staffer in the Michigan State House in constituent services. Our legislative offices are set up with the infrastructure that half of your office and staff is dedicated specifically to serve your constituents, to answer emails and phone calls, to make sure you're being interactive and advocating via social media. So the existence of our legislative offices are to serve you, the community. Yes, policy is important, bill drafting is important, making sure you're showing up to committee and to the House floor with the knowledge you need to cast the appropriate vote for your community is important. But as a state representative, a bulk of your job is to be an advocate and is to serve your constituents. That is something that I did for many years and so enjoyed as a professional. The reason I pursued public service is because I fell in love with constituent services. I saw government on its best day, that when I answer that phone call or respond to that email, I am actively helping a constituent solve a problem or break through a bureaucratic red tape. That is why I'm here, sitting at this table before you, because I love serving our community and our constituents, and that is my heart and what I will continue to do as your state representative. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question, we will begin with Marcia. What are the top 3 issues you want to address in your district?
I pretty much covered them, I think, when I started, and I would not be here at this table next to my opponent if it was not for the misuse of power that I have witnessed in this community, the lawsuits, the waste of money. That is a huge issue for me. Day one of the reign, or whatever we want to call it, of Ottawa Impact, started with a complete lack of transparency, decisions that were made behind closed doors. That is not how we run government. That's just un-American, and it's wrong. And we can, the letter of the law was followed, the spirit of the law was ignored. And we need to follow the spirit of the law, but we can get away with not following it if the letter doesn't agree. So, number one, that is one of my big things that I want to fix. And I really want to clarify the health officer commissioner responsibility and role, because our public health system is very important. It's your safe food, your clean water, your clean air, protection from infectious diseases. So those are huge. And like I said, after that, then water and affordable living. We need to address affordable living for families especially, but for a lot of us. And we don't have it right now. So, and I yield the floor.
Roger?
So great ideas. 3 top issues for my district. I think one is the values, bringing values to Lansing to be able to ensure that what we're doing actually matches what the people need. So we need to be taking values there. I truly believe that we need to continue to push local control into being able to do things here in our community. It shouldn't be just coming down to us from Lansing. It should be giving the people here the ability to make things happen so on their own. And I think there's a affordable living is the big catch-all, but we need to be able to do affordable living that enables taxes to not be rising so that we can keep up with that. We need to be able to have housing. We need to have affordable water. We're concerned about where the water is going to go in the Allendale area specifically, other kinds of things. So it's affording all of that and putting that up for people to be able to have the right things for them.
Abby?
Yeah, so I have my 3 E's, and I am going to throw in my kind of unofficial 4th E. So the first is public education. Again, I am a proud graduate of our Holland Public Schools. Both of my parents and my sister are public educators. We need to ensure that we're fully funding our public schools. Public education is critical to the social and economic infrastructure of our community, protecting our environment. The 86th district here in West Michigan, we have miles and miles of shoreline and one of our globe's most precious resource, which is Lake Michigan. We need to ensure that we're protecting that resource and our drinking water. We've seen what happens in communities where drinking water is neglected and the devastation and decades-long health issues and costs for a community when we don't protect our drinking water. And of course, the economy. Incentivizing businesses large and small to continue investing here. Ottawa County is the fastest growing county in the state of Michigan. Businesses are flocking to our communities. How are we making this a friendly place for them to be, but also ensuring that we're protecting our workforce and making sure it's a healthy environment for them? My 4th E is empathy, putting the service back in public service, putting people above party and above politics, and truly representing the voice and values of the Greater Holland area. Thank you.
I'll talk more specifically about some of the values that I mentioned in my opening statement. I think in protecting our democracy right now, we have issues related to the safety and support of election workers. It's become an incredibly stressful process for many of the participants, and that's not a great sign for democracy, I'd say. And also continuing to protect access to the vote for all of our citizens. Water is also an issue in my district, and whether it is runoff of chemicals into Twin Lake or the aquifer being drained, which causes people like my family to need to drill a deeper well. I think we're seeing that water is not an individual house by house issue. It is an issue of communities, and we need to find solutions for those issues together. And then finally, I'll also voice support, continuing support for public education. And in my world, as the mother of a high school teacher and the grandmother of an 8-year-old, that includes common sense gun legislation so that we can keep our children and our teachers safe when they're in school.
Thank you. Brad, the next question is for you and others, beginning with you. Public education, that is K through 12 education in Michigan, is ranked 36th. How can state government help to raise it to the top 10?
So education is one of those things that we have put guardrails on at the state and at the federal level. We've put lots of, tied funding to lots of really specific reporting and outcomes. And sometimes in our schools, we need to loosen some of those requirements to be able to get quality education. An example would be, I spent some time today with the Hudsonville superintendent. They process and have more special needs children in their school than some of the other districts do. But the funding doesn't change based on what your district has in the number of types of students and the number of different kinds of folks that you need to take care of. We need to, I think, look at ways to be able to do education in a little different way so that we can help those students get the best learning they can from the districts that they're in, and we need to make that happen. We need to continue to really focus on what the teachers need, being able to make sure that they're funded and that their retirements are funded as well. We also need to continue to work on thinking broadly about the kinds of curriculum, and I think we need to allow every kind of school here, public, private, homeschool, all of those things, and we need to make sure that we allow that and set the legislation up to be able to make that happen.
Thank you. Abby?
Public education in Michigan has been drained of funding and under attack for decades. We are just starting to see, in this trifecta Democratic majority, that funding being restored after 4 years. We need to continue restoring funding to public education. We need to trust our public educators. Let our teachers teach. They have gone to school and poured their heart and soul into becoming an educator. It's not an easy job. Let's trust them to teach our students and equip them with the knowledge and resources they need to go out into our community and be successful citizens. That comes, yes, protecting their pension and their retirement, ensuring that they have access to health care, ensuring that they are being paid a fair wage. And again, let's look at education, public education, more holistically, of this being a part of our social and economic and community infrastructure. Education doesn't start at that first bell, and it doesn't end when students leave at the end of the day. For young people, it's something that continues at home. How are we equipping parents and guardians to continue education when their student comes home from school, making school a safe space? We need to continue to introduce common sense gun legislation so our students can go to school and feel safe in their learning environment, and just continue to make childcare more affordable for folks in our community. Thank you.
Unsurprisingly, Abby and I kind of agree on this. We both have parents. My mother was a public school teacher. She raised 3 kids on a public school salary after my dad died. I am gratified to be able to say that the budget is returning funding to public schools, and that's a very good thing for our teachers and our students. We need to continue funding public schools. We need to value teachers and trust teachers, and that does include keeping them safe and understanding what we're asking for of them. They need our support in the community, because all of the issues that show up in the community also show up in the classroom. It's a tremendously challenging job right now. Then we also need to revisit some of the metrics that we have developed over the last decade or so. Some of them are counterproductive, and that doesn't mean that the intentions were bad. It just means that they're not working. And if we can do better, let's do better.
Marcia?
I love all of these points. So, public education, we were almost at the top, several decades ago. So we have dropped. But one of the things that has made America great is our commitment to public education for every single child that doesn't cost that family. My husband husband came from Africa. He didn't get to go to school because he didn't have money for school that day. And it's like that in many places of the world. All of our children, no matter what their ability is, are able to attend school. And this is a commitment we have made as taxpayers that we believe this is important for a thriving country into the future. So I absolutely do not agree with removing funding from public education. I absolutely do agree with having other educational options and opportunities, but not at the expense of public education. I'm a public school grad. I homeschooled my children. And so, I understand the different reasons why we would pick those different opportunities. I agree with protecting teachers. During COVID, I saw healthcare workers being hit and punched. Teachers were yelled at and screamed at and threatened. That shouldn't happen. Hopefully we won't have that happen again. But I'd like to see decreasing class sizes and attracting teachers through maybe raising the lower limit of their wages. And that might help us improve that. Yield the floor.
Abby, start with you again. And this is not far afield from an earlier question. We're still talking about education. So the question is, what are your thoughts on supporting universal pre-K? Would you like me to repeat that, Lois? What are your thoughts on supporting universal pre-K?
I think that that's a wonderful idea. Not only does that provide access and support for families with young children, we live in a world where it's not reality for most families to have one parent stay home while another goes out to work. Every parent and guardian at home is working at least one job, if not 2 or 3, to support their family members. So having that access to early education not only serves as a form of childcare for some of the most vulnerable and at-need members of our community, but education starts at birth, right? And it doesn't continue until we draw our last breath. We need to encourage education and learning from the earliest age possible to continue to equip our children with the education and resources they need to thrive in the world. So education, I think, as a government and as a community is one of our greatest responsibilities, and protecting and providing knowledge and resources to the next generation is our duty, again, as a community and as a government.
That's a pretty straightforward answer for me. I do support universal pre-K because the data supports it as being a really important part of giving children a good start in their education and in their success in life.
Thank you. So I believe in universal pre-K, absolutely, but I also believe in it being a choice and not a mandate. There are some families who would like to keep their child home longer, and home is a good place, and they can have them there until they're ready to start kindergarten. But in many, many cases, it takes both parents working, and childcare is hard to find, and it's very, very expensive. And so to have a safe place where there's food, and where there's education and interaction with the supervised social activities is a wonderful, wonderful idea, and it's not always affordable, and very often not affordable for young families. So I support it, but not mandate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think pre-K is a wonderful idea. Universal pre-K, I think, much to Marcia's thought process is, universal says that everyone will be there, and I think there's a concern when we're mandating that kind of thing, because families are different and will want to see things differently. There are several other concerns I think that we need to make sure that we're addressing if we're going to go that direction, though, and one of them is the space. We're going to have additional spaces that we don't have right now, so there's building costs and things that we're going to have to plug into that. There are also the teachers. We're struggling to get teachers and people available to be able to do the teaching of students as we have it right now. I'm sure that there are open slots at Holland Public, at Zeeland Public today that we need to fill with teachers, and so are we going to have that many more for that universal pre-K? And I guess the dollars for the program, the question is, where are they coming from? If we're going to do universal pre-K, we've already got a budget that is full of things that need to be done. What are we going to cut to be able to make it happen? Because either we have to make cuts or we have to do tax increases. It's our choice.
Thank you. A new category, we're going to be talking about housing, affordable housing. We're starting with you, Lois. How would you, as a state rep, support local efforts to increase affordable housing?
The first thing that can be done is to work with local organizations to make sure that they're fully aware of the opportunities that are available to them, and to work to encourage collaboration among organizations that are already focused on that issue. I think there is also opportunity for incentives that are not specific to, that are based in the region, not in individual communities, because housing is an issue that we share across boundaries of counties and townships.
Housing is one of, to me, the 4 factors that make it really difficult to thrive here. Not just here, but in the United States. So housing is really, really important. Zoning is something we have to think about. Traveling around the world, it looks very different in different countries. But to be able to allow multiple types of units within a zoned area, I think could be really healthy and help contribute to an integration, getting to know our neighbors, getting to know neighbors from different sizes and different incomes. Another thing that I would really like to see thought about is making mobile homes an affordable option. The problems that we have with that right now is that we don't allow or include financing of mobile homes with first-time buyer incentives. They're not included in that. They also don't have access to insurance for that if they buy one. And I think that's one of the untapped areas where we could make housing more affordable. But there's just some barriers there that legislatively or with policy, I think we could make that work. And I'd like to see that happen, at least some good conversation around it.
Brad?
Thank you. Yeah, affordable housing is one of those, it's a hard thing to define and really hard thing to quantify. There are several things. One, I think we've got a bureaucratic system that includes zoning, as Marcia was just saying, that keeps us from being able to build all types and build them quickly, build them inefficiently. One of the things that are out there is the change in legislation or building codes that are going on in the books, which will shortly, if we accept the 2021 building code, which is on the docket to try and be able to accept, actually includes sprinklers in houses. That increases the cost of every housing unit by about $20,000. Why? If we're truly interested in affordable housing, we need to stop those kind of bureaucratic nightmares which create more housing costs for us as we move forward. And I think we need to work in building all types, not only the affordable type, but even high-end houses. If people are willing to move up to another house, that makes their house, that old house, more affordable. And so we need to build every type, and as many of them as we can. We definitely have a need to make that happen.
I serve on the Holland Human Relations Commission and its Housing Subcommittee. This is something that we have been working on for quite a while and looking at from every angle that we can. I participated in a cohort hosted by the Dwelling Place, which works to create affordable, accessible housing in our communities. And like my colleagues up here have said, it's a complicated issue. We do need to provide and build more housing stock from the highest end to the lowest end. The illustration of that that our Dwelling Place cohort shared is hermit crabs. As hermit crabs grow, they change up for a larger shell. Then those smaller shells become available to the smaller hermit crabs, and so on and so on. So as those crabs grow and move on, those shells become available for others. And we can kind of look at housing in the same way, is when we do create the higher end housing, the housing that might be more affordable to the middle class or low income folks becomes available. So looking at it holistically, and I think changing our attitude about affordable housing, who needs affordable housing, what that looks like, and how it truly benefits our community and our economy.
Thank you. We're moving on to another area. We're moving into public safety. The question is, do we need more police officers on the streets? If so, how would you propose funding more officers? Marcia, we begin with you.
So I know this has been controversial, defund the police talks and things like that. I think that's the wrong message, but I think a better message might be not just police. It's not just the policeman's job or the policewoman's job to make our community safe and to solve crime. We need to bring in more, and this comes from my public health background, this prevention perspective. And so I think we could have social workers involved, we could use our nonprofits, use this collaborative, innovative community that used to always work together to solve problems. Come up with other ways to solve our safety and crime issues that don't put it all on the shoulders of the police and just thinking about guns. So, I yield the floor.
So public safety, I think, is truly all of our responsibilities. We should be, when we have a chance, if we see something happening, we should be willing to step in, make the phone calls to 911. We should be willing to try and step in a place where it may be uncomfortable for us, but even to help diffuse some of the energy that's there, that should be part of our job. Do we need more officers? I think we probably do. That probably makes sense for us to have more officers. We could use them in our school systems to make sure, because when kids get to spend time with officers in that kind of environment, they have less negative thoughts about officers going into the future, and we need to be able to have that kind of input. Yes, I think there's a need for more officers, and I think we ought to be continuing to look for ways to be able to fill them.
Last fall, I had the privilege of participating in the Holland Citizens Police Academy here with Holland Public Safety, which is a several weeks long program for a couple hours, one night a week, to get obviously very brief glimpses and snapshots of our public safety here in Holland. And I was so incredibly impressed and proud of the operation we have here in Holland. I do think, unfortunately, that's the exception to the rule. I would love to see Holland Public Safety be used as a blueprint for other police departments across the state. The community policing we have here, so we have officers who, during their shift while they're on duty, are active in communities. They're going to community events like fun runs and giving out ice cream in parks and engaging with our young people. We have a community health professional that rides along kind of 9 to 5 with a uniformed police officer to respond to folks who are in a mental health crisis. So imagine being in a mental health crisis and the fear and anxiety you have, and a uniformed police officer shows up, and how that is going to escalate that situation. We have a mental health professional who now can go to some of those calls and help de-escalate those situations and give that individual the mental health care they need by taking them to a hospital and not by putting them behind bars. How can we continue to make that program robust? So I'm sure we do need more police officers in some ways as we are a growing community, but we also need to be able to really look at how we're utilizing staffing and hopefully create more opportunities for our officers to plug in to areas they're passionate about to serve our community.
The district that I'm running to represent is quite diverse, and it includes a number of different communities, and I can't make a blanket statement that they all need more or fewer police officers. I think that for each community, it's really important to look at the root causes and what the issues are from day to day. if there are issues of poverty or addiction that need a different set of solutions, then that's where we should put the resources, because the closer we can get to the root causes, the more effective we'll be in the long run. We ask a lot of police officers. They're dealing with mental health crises. They're doing family mediation. They're responding to a whole range of situations where maybe there could be other professionals who could serve in a comparable role. And I think that I too think that we all have a responsibility in this, in our community safety, and I think our first responsibility is to civility, to treating our neighbors with respect, and to look to solve problems in a calm and rational way without escalating.
Thank you. We begin with another set of questions. These questions relate to farming and preservation of farmland. This question begins with you, Brad, and it follows. There is tension between the county's increasing population and the need for housing and renewable energy, and the preservation of farmland. What are your thoughts on balancing these interests?
Thank you for the question. So it is, we in Ottawa County have a wonderful gift that the Lord has given us, and that is that we are in a place where we get abundant rain, we have great soils for being able to grow stuff, and we need to protect that opportunity to be able to do that. If you don't keep enough farming together in an area, then all of the industry that relates to farming disappears. So the grain elevators, the farm implement dealers, if you don't have enough volume, there's no reason for them to be here. So we lose jobs and ability and people if we don't keep the farming available. We also need to be really careful that we don't take over that ground, all the good ground, because it's easy to build houses on or build power facilities on or solar arrays or all those kind of things. We need to make sure that we're using ground that isn't very productive to do those kinds of things if we can. And we need to really look at how much can we use brown fields rather than green fields to be able to redevelop, because that saves us, obviously, the ground and an ability to continue to farm. I think none of us want to give up farming for the ability to produce power because we'd still like to eat tomorrow. So I think we need to really make it a priority for us to be able to have good farmland and to be able to keep it going.
Ottawa County, which is the majority of my district, I believe is one of the most diverse counties in Ottawa County when it comes to our agriculture, with the crops that we grow and the livestock that we grow here. So we absolutely need to be sure that we're being very mindful of being good advocates for our rural community and our farmers. That looks like, again, protecting our environment and especially our water, to ensure that our farmers have access to clean water to water their crops, to ensure that we're really monitoring the way that our world is changing and our climate is changing here. And look how hot it's been this September. I know a lot of our crops have been early, and then we have cold spells and high winds and natural disasters that can devastate for an entire year, an entire season, our farmers in agriculture who rely on those crops to provide for their own families. I mean, you don't get rich, being a farmer unless you maybe have a big beef farm in Texas, right? So allowing opportunities for our farmers to use their land to perhaps host solar panels or wind farms is a way for them to diversify their income and to continue operating their farms, so we have fresh, safe food here in West Michigan. It's certainly not a bad thing to allow our farmers to utilize their land and to boost their own income while they're also supplying very necessary food and resources here for our community.
The 89th district includes a chunk of Ottawa County and also a chunk of Muskegon County and also a little strip of Kent County. And there is farmland everywhere across that district. And it is not all the same. There are small organic farms and there are large industrial scale farms, and we need to be able to meet the needs of all of those farms because they're all part of our culture as a set of communities that really value growing things and eating good food and going to those farmers markets. We can learn a lot from other areas in the country and other parts of the world where they have successfully combined continued growing and alternative energy practices. And it's really important that we support farmers in balancing the needs of the short term with our obligation to future generations to have natural environments, but also have fertile soil, water available to irrigate with, and the culture that we really value.
So we do have amazing agriculture here, and one of the things I love about our community is that we grow a variety of food locally. We're not a monocrop kind of community or just, a ranching type of community. So we have something really beautiful and unique that I think we would want to preserve, the ability to have a variety of foods grown locally for us. It's more efficient sometimes to grow lots and lots and lots far away, but we've gone through situations where we found out, hey, if that's only available in that country, it could be really hard for us to get that food in the future. So I'm a data person, a science person, so I want to look at best practices, what's worked well in other places, what does the data say is helping. I'm thinking number one, higher density housing to preserve our farmland, and our young people are liking that. I mean, they're ready for that. Number two, we need to allow a reasonable amount of legal immigrant labor in for our farms and our farm workers. My teenagers did not want to go pick strawberries for a living, like I did. And I don't know what the future will be, but I appreciate that labor coming in and picking food for us. And number three, there's things like vertical farming and other experimental things, and I'd like to see the data on that and how successful is that? Is it replicable? So thank you, I yield the floor.
Now we're moving to infrastructure and the electric grid. The question, what kind of a mix of energy supplies or products makes sense to continue to meet growing demand? Abby.
We have an incredible opportunity here in the future to invest in green energy and infrastructure. Not only does that help protect our environment long term, but it creates jobs, good paying jobs for members of our community here. That looks like what we talked about earlier, utilizing our natural resources such as wind energy and solar energy to power our communities, ensuring that we have safe, very well organized plans in place for when our power grid might fail, especially during natural disasters and emergencies, so we can continue to provide power to necessary resources like our hospitals and our schools and other public resources. So we very much need to, as a state of Michigan, invest in infrastructure. We can see that around us here just in our own communities, how much we need that investment here to bolster the infrastructure that already exists and add to it for the needs of the future, especially as we see our population continue to increase. We need to make sure that we can continue to meet those power needs for a growing community, and that's going to take a lot of collaboration and a lot of creativity.
The questions that we need to ask ourselves when we think about our energy sources have to do not only with the costs this year or next year, but the costs over the next 10, 20, 30 years, because those costs are costs that we are leaving to our children, our grandchildren, and their children in environmental degradation and health effects. So we are in the midst of a transition, and clean energy is clearly the way to go to protect our future. And the question of how quickly we can get there will be dependent on our will and our ability to consider the entire equation of cost, both short-term and long-term.
So my husband and I did some traveling this summer, and it was really instructive. We spent some time in Mexico City, and we spent some time in the mountains of Ecuador. In Mexico City, it became very clear to me some of the effects of climate change. And you could not breathe the air there. I could see the air. I can't see the air in this room. I could see the air in Mexico City. And they were talking about weeks until they ran out of water. So the state of Michigan, our Constitution, basically has a mandate that we legislatively address the health and welfare of our citizenry. So it's absolutely the job of state representatives and the state government to weigh into this situation and do what we can. We cannot ignore it. We have to go forward. The second country, they had only one kind of electric utility, and it was water power. So whenever their water went down, they had no power. So we must diversify. We need to look at our power needs and do all of the things that we have. But another thing that we need to look at is an investment in the efficiency of our infrastructure foundationally. When we build homes, I know it costs a little bit more to make them very efficient, energy efficient, but that will help us in the future, I believe, lower costs and make our energy last longer for more people because we have an increasing population. Thank you.
So, as I understand the question, Marcia, just to make sure, it is the infrastructure and how do we maintain that or build it for our future? Is that?
I'll repeat it.
Thank you.
What kind of a mix of energy supplies or products makes sense to continue to meet growing demand?
Perfect. Thank you. So, I truly believe it's an all of the above thought process. It is wind, solar, clean energy. It is switchgrass being turned into methane, which then you can generate power from. It is looking at water. If you go down to the Felt mansion, he pumped water from Lake Michigan way up the hill to his house with no electricity. He did it just with wave action. Every day the waves pound on the shore. We could use those kind of things to be able to make way different for our life. Rivers, streams, everything could be utilized to be able to do that. We can do things way smarter than we're doing today. Plus, we can't, but some of that stuff, I mean, waves don't pound all the day, so how are you going to take care of that? And you need some of those things like still natural gas-fired generators or other kinds of things that enable us to be able to generate power even in the midst of a dark night. So the goal would be all of the above, and then we also need to harden our power grid because if you stand under electrical lines, you can hear them buzz and zap. That's wasted electricity. We need to figure out ways to be able to move electricity much more effectively than we do today.
Thank you. Lois, we're starting with you. And the question for all of you is, what do you see as the state's role, if any, in mitigating the impact of climate change?
The state absolutely has a role in mitigating climate change as it should. That's big. Part of it is setting goals that we can work toward together and understanding exactly what it will take for us to move toward mitigation together so that we're not leaving people or industries behind. This is a case where in order to solve the problems for all of us, we may need to provide support to industries that are not as economically sound or have a lower profit margin than others. I think we can set the example as a state government by having high standards for state operations and encouraging communities through various incentives to do their part. And I think there's also a huge education component. I think there are too many people who still question the science of climate change, and I think that handicaps us in moving towards solutions.
Thank you. So as I stated in my last answer, the state constitution specifies, right, that it is the role of the state and the legislature to address the health and welfare of the citizenry. Climate change is one of those things that's going to be impacting the health and welfare of the citizenry. We need to follow the science. The science will continue to evolve. We will learn new things. We will find out that some of the things we think we know right now are wrong, and we'll find out that they change, and that's okay. That's the scientific process, but we need to keep following that and having the conversations that we need to have. One of the things that I'm concerned about is climate change will always affect the most vulnerable first. So the businesses that are struggling and barely making it, those who are poor among us, those who are medically fragile already. As climate change happens, it's going to exacerbate that. If we need to address solutions, and if we can help those people thrive, it will lift the boat for all of us.
Yeah, I think that we as a state are responsible for trying to help businesses, specifically power companies, those kind of places, work really hard at trying to clean up what they have. An example is the state made Consumers Energy put in $3 billion worth of upgrades to scrape and clean what was going to come out of their plant in our Port Sheldon plant that's just up the street here. We tore down the coal fire plant that was here in town. We did that because it's dirty, right? That was a problem and we needed to fix that. So I think we as a state need to continue to encourage engineering changes, direct ideas and ways to be able to generate in a more effective, efficient manner. If we do that, we can help to change the how fast climate change might be happening.
Abby?
We as a legislature and as community members need to be willing to do the work, to plant the trees, knowing full well that we will likely not live to enjoy the shade. We need to be forward thinking about how climate change is going to affect generations to come. It's absolutely the role of government to ensure that we have a state and a community that's going to exist in the next decades or so, or 100 years, and that's hard. It's hard to get everybody on board, because we do need everybody on board in order to make these changes. For folks, like myself, living paycheck to paycheck, it's really hard for me to think about putting in a several $1,000 car charging port, even though I'm going to get a rebate, when I can hardly afford to fill up my tank of gas. When I'm thinking about how am I going to pay my energy bill this month and afford dog food. It's really hard to think beyond what struggles we're experiencing every day. But the good news is that doesn't just fall on us everyday folks, right? Us everyday taxpayers and citizens here. We need to hold big businesses accountable for the pollution that they're pumping into our land, water, and air. Because the reality is, buying paper straws or turning off the lights more often than we might is not going to fix climate change. There are big people in power who make a lot of money polluting our land, water, and air, and it's time that we all step up and hold them accountable and tell them to stop. And that's the role of government, is to be that advocate and that fighter.
Thank you. We're moving on to a new topic. That topic is gun safety. Gun safety continues to be a problem across the county. Do you believe there is a need for more gun control measures? Why or why not? If so, which additional measures would be most effective? May I just adjust the word from county to country? And we'll begin with you, Marcia.
Thank you. So this kind of baffles me. When our kids are getting hurt or killed because of something, we have always done whatever we had to do to make that better. So back in the day when I was learning how to drive, all of a sudden I had to wear seatbelts. We didn't have to do that before. And we protested about our rights and our freedom. And then after that, we had to put our babies, take them from the arms of their mother, right, and put them in a car seat. And there was a lot of uproar about that. Again, about rights and about like the maternal infant bond. That was not happening there in that car. And we put them in car seats because they were being harmed unnecessarily. Our children are precious. And that's like the biggest thing that concerns me. When I went to school, tornado drill was the thing that I had to deal with. I never had to think about what kids and parents think about now. I do not see why we cannot have conversations and figure something out. It may not be the final solution, but let's get started on protecting our kids.
So gun safety is absolutely required. I mean, every class that you would take on any kind of guns, instruction, information, whatever, always talks about safety. It talks about how do you make sure that it's empty? How do you ensure that you don't leave a gun that's loaded laying around? How do you ensure that kids can't get it? How do you lock them up? How do you take, all of that stuff is vitally important. And we need to continue to teach those kinds of things. Do we need more gun control? I don't necessarily believe that we need more gun control. We need more control of the guns that we have.
I like to tell this anecdote when talking about how our lack of gun control and gun safety has affected our young people and this next generation. I work at the Humane Society, and we see a lot of crazy things. Rarely am I like, I've never seen this before, this is a first. But a few months back, we had a gentleman who tried to steal a kid from our shelter. Now, I'm a sturdy, corn-fed Midwestern Dutch girl, so I use myself as a barricade to stop this man from stealing the kitten. Glad to say that all is well. Kitten got adopted just a few days later. But it was a bit scary to see that and experience that. This all happened in front of one of our kids' summer camps. Group of elementary students who just wanted to be there to learn about animal welfare. Well, a few days later, I was talking to our volunteer manager and said, gosh, I'm really sorry that happened. I hope those kids weren't too traumatized. And she said, well, after everybody left and we got this gentleman out of the building, they turned to me and said, will you please lock the door? They thought he was going to go out into his car and come back inside with a gun. And they were afraid that one of the staff members or they themselves were in danger. That is how gun culture in this country is affecting our young people. That if they see adults in conflict, they immediately assume a firearm is going to be brought into the equation. That is unacceptable. This 11-bill package that was passed in the Democratic majority only moves Michigan to the middle of the pack when it comes to gun safety. There is so much more room to do more and to protect our young people. We need to ensure that, again, we're putting people over politics and people over party.
We have laws in Michigan that are relatively new, I think last year, for safe storage and a red flag law. And I'm not sure that they have been implemented uniformly because it's hard, right? Guns are in private homes and they're, we're not going door to door to check on gun storage. But there's absolutely a price that we're paying, and it's not just gun deaths, although there are way too many of them, and I think 60% of gun deaths are suicides, which is another cost we're paying. So I believe that we do need more. We need both an assault weapon ban, and we need to also be working, this is not necessarily for the government to do, it is for us to do. Let's stop the idolatry of the gun culture. There's just, this is not helpful for us to be thinking of arming ourselves against our neighbors.
Thank you. We're talking now about taxes and the state budget. The question is, are state income tax cuts warranted? If not, where would you decrease spending to balance the budget? Brad?
So one more time, our state cuts
Our-
warranted.
Are state income tax cuts warranted?
Uh-huh.
If not, where would you decrease spending to balance the budget?
Excellent. So I think the question is, do we want to do more? So are you satisfied with what we have, or are you going to try and do something else? If we're going to try and do something else, then we can't cut the budget. We actually have to increase the taxes. My contention would be that at a certain point, you've taxed people to a place where they're losing their ability to provide for their family or in their community the way that they'd like to. Affordable housing becomes less affordable as we do all those kind of things. I think that we should be looking at tax cuts. We should truly be looking at how do we try and do as much as we can with less, rather than trying to increase taxes to match a budget that I think is growing faster than it should.
Thank you.
I fully understand, as I think we all do here, that we pay taxes to fund and support our communities, our schools, our roads, other goods and services that we and our friends and neighbors need to utilize. However, I also understand, especially in an economic environment like this, how important every penny, every dollar is to a family. And increasing taxes on the middle class and low-income Michiganders does not make sense. We need to look at increasing taxes, or at least ensuring that the wealthiest members of our community, that the biggest businesses in our community are paying their fair share into our tax system, especially as our local, county, state, and federal governments repeatedly give them incentives and tax cuts to invest and build businesses here. So let's look at how we can raise taxes at the highest levels and lower those taxes for folks who again are just scraping by to pay their bills every day.
I think it's difficult to say that in the abstract, a budget is too big, or a tax bill is too high, or a government is too big, or a government is too small, because the question is really, are we confident that we are making an investment in our shared welfare with the tax dollars that we pay? So it's not a question of whether we would a family be able to pay for college if their taxes were lower? Possibly not. But if they pay taxes, they have access to a free community college experience. That's value. So we really need to look at the value of what we're deciding to do together, rather than trying to speak in the abstract about the size of a budget or the size of a government.
Thank you.
There's so many things that I would like to say about this in only 90 seconds, so thank you, League Women Voters, for putting this limit on us. We're not the only country in the world, right? People are doing this different ways all over the world, and we can learn from each other. And this area, taxes and budget, is something that should definitely be bipartisan. We all know where we want to be. We want to be a thriving economy where we have enough money and our people are taken care of. We have very different ideas how to get there. But I believe in the value of the conversations around those different ideas. So, a couple ideas. We have not increased taxes. Our taxes going down warranted. It's lovely if we can, but who should be taxed and how much? And my co-candidates make a great point about that. One little thing that I love about Ronald Reagan is he said, the United States is a place where everyone in the world wants to live. And if we ever become a place where no one wants to live, what kind of a country are we? So one thing we could do is legalize, make an easy way in, not easy like tomorrow, but a short way to, if you're an immigrant here and you're not legal, get yourself legal and start paying into the system that we all have. That's one quick way, and it comes with the dream of being in America. Bring your tired and hungry, right? Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Divisiveness in politics is at an all-time high. How can you contribute to turning down the temperature? We begin with you, Abby.
So for this question, again, I will lean on my experience in the State House and as a legislative staffer. And I'm happy to tell you that we don't all hate each other. A lot of what you see in the media and the news is this divisiveness. We focus on the times where we don't agree, but rarely do we talk about the times we come together. Look at all of the legislation that has passed just this year and past legislative sessions. That happens because of bipartisan politics. It doesn't take just one party to pass a bill. It doesn't take just one party to get a bill to the governor's desk for it to be signed. It takes a lot of work and relationship building across the aisle to make those things happen. And what I know about all of us here on this stage is, while some of us may think differently about policy, have different values when it comes to some social issues or economic issues, we are all here today. We're running for office and we're active in our communities. And you're all here today listening to us speak because you care about our community and about our state. It doesn't matter if you have a D and R next to your name. We have the capability to come together and to work together, and that does happen and it does go on, but rarely is it something that we talk about. So we as legislators certainly need to do better when we're talking about one another and talking about folks across the aisle, to be very mindful about the environment and culture we're creating, and the way we're speaking about each other and about issues that are facing our state and our nation.
I think that what's become difficult is looking for and finding the common ground, because we are so focused on how we're different and not what we have in common. So I think that's a place to start. And then I think if we can encourage ourselves and others to have a certain level of pragmatism, that this is about finding that middle way. It's not about winning or imposing our will, or being a perfectionist in our own minds. That can also help. I think using facts ourselves and also asking other people to provide facts and verification of those facts so that we're talking about our shared reality is really helpful. And I also think that we can all join in practicing calm, so that we can encourage the discussion and short circuit the vitriol.
We've seen, I think, the best example of this question right here in Ottawa County. The whole country is epitomized right here in our county with what's been happening at the county commission seat. So, number one, we have to commit to values as people, individually, commit to values that we've abandoned. There are people saying things about other people that I did not think was something that we would ever do. I thought we held in common the fact that there's dignity in the value of every human life and that we treat people that way. And that's just not happening in social media, and that's not happening face to face. And it's bad enough that you don't dare put a political sign in your front yard because of what your neighbors might do to you. So this is just ridiculous. And it's gotten so extreme on both sides, the two parties that we have, where they're dehumanizing people and being extreme. And that is unacceptable. I just thought we all agreed on that. And apparently we don't. So what I'd love to do is have at least 2 functioning political parties. Often in this community, you have one choice in November, and that's not good. I'd love to move us to where we have 3 or more, or we have a different kind of voting system, so that there are multiple parties making decisions, and you can't just blame one or the other.
So this is an interesting thing for me. One of the opportunities that I've had as I sat in the legislature is I was actually able to sit on the left side of the aisle for my first 2 years, or my first 2 terms, because we were in the majority. That meant that somebody had to bleed over to that side of the aisle, and I volunteered. I was interested in that because that gave me a chance to actually have other kinds of conversations that I wouldn't have if I was sitting on the other side of the aisle. And I've chosen to sit at the very back of the House floor because everybody walks past my desk right now to go to the bathroom or to go to the coffee break room. And so everybody comes past. It gives me a chance to talk to them. One of the other things that I've done is, if I can, on a monthly basis while we're in Lansing, I'm working on trying to put 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats together for dinner, where we go and just sit and talk. We don't talk about necessarily the legislation that's going on. We talk about families and about where we're coming from and what do we do, what do we like to do. And those are the kind of things that I think makes a difference. Learning people's names changes how people see each other. If you can address somebody by name, it makes a difference. I would agree with Lois that facts would be a huge deal. We deal in generalities or in fluff often, and that doesn't bring us to the ability to be able to communicate well with somebody else. We need those things.
Thank you.
I have the answer. We live in Michigan, right? I mean, we have snowplows, we have freezing and thawing and salt. So, I mean, it's just never going to be fixed because we crack it, it goes up and down, and then we plow and it flies apart. But I've been places where they've made an investment, and this is a scary thing, but sometimes you have to spend money to save money in the long run. We could have fewer cars on the road by investing in some public transportation, and I'd like it to be electric. I think that'd be great for our air and everything else, and make it affordable so that we can get from place to place, carpool, drop the car, get on the train, or whatever. It'll take a while, but I don't see why we couldn't get there. And it would make a difference. And I spent not all summer, but my whole vacation doing that. And it was fabulous. And I walked, and it was healthy.
I definitely don't have the answer. But I do believe that there are some wise things that we can do to try and set up how are we going to go into the future. You're exactly right, Marcia. We need to be able to invest today to be able to grow into the future. Part of that, though, I think, is how do we do additional building roads in ways that we're not used to doing. One of the examples would be that when you cross a bridge, if you just look at the road surface and you cross bridges, the bridges are typically in better shape than the road surface is that you just came off of to cross that bridge. Why? Because it's elevated, it's up in the air, it's not in that freeze-thaw thing in the ground. Are there ways to put our roads on piers, on pylons, up in the air? Maybe only a little bit, but are there ways to do it? We're not really investigating some of those things. We can do things through the road work to try and make things happen if we're willing to try.
Well, I honestly was hoping we would have flying cars by now, so that was the answer. But I think when it comes to road funding, again, it's very complicated. I too am not going to pretend to have the answer. One thing I can mention is we talked today a lot about diversity in energy. So it's likely not going to work in the next few decades to rely so heavily on a gas tax because we're looking at alternative forms of energy. So let's look at mileage and weight. Let's tax based on how far folks are driving or the weight of a vehicle. So those who are facing the most wear and tear on our roads are the ones who are paying that level of tax to then fix the road. So we can certainly be creative. I love the conversation about engineering and looking at the structure of our roads. We absolutely need to invest in public education, especially here in the Holland area in West Michigan. So, and that's where these bipartisan conversations, these creative conversations come into play, and why it's so important that we have diverse perspectives and voices in our government.
Thank all of you. We are now going to move into the closing statements. Those closing statements will not exceed 2 minutes. The order of presentation is now reversed, so we will begin with Bradley, then move to Marcia, then Lois, and then Allie. So Brad, beginning with you.
Before we began, Marcia said that if she used Bradley, I was in trouble. Did you hear her just do that? So I'm a little worried about where that went, but okay.
But I'm not going to tell him why.
So I'm Brad Slagh, and I'm the incumbent in the 85th House seat. And I'm running because in today's uncertain environment, we need experienced, value-centered folks who've been elected into office. My background includes leadership in business and in local and state government, and a desire to listen. I'm looking to be your capital voice for our local community, and I'm Brad Slagh, and I'd appreciate your vote in November.
I would just like to summarize kind of how I started. So while I was serving at the Ottawa County Department of Public Health, I decided to run after I saw a gross misuse of power by our new county leaders. A little group called Ottawa Impact slashed funding for essential community resources over culture war issues that have nothing to do with the job that they signed up for. So I intend to address the laws that allowed for this local political takeover and the incompetence that followed it, and help prevent this from happening to us in the future and to any other Michigan community in the future. Additionally, I seek to protect and serve the most important parts of Michigan, and I talked about those, and we've talked about those. Our families and our water have come up frequently. Over 39% of Michigan families are struggling to afford the most basic needs, and these are working families. That number, though, is based on a family of 4 finding a place to live for $532 a month. So 39% is the floor. It's higher than that. The Great Lakes hold 20% of the world's fresh water. Michigan touches 4 of the 5 of them. It is our great responsibility to care for and steward this resource in the future, and we've talked about that a lot. I want to remind you how I work. I engage with all perspectives. I always have. That's what public health is about, across party lines, and I want to keep you involved every step of the way. I have been so proud to live here, I've said that, and work here. I think this is an amazing community, but it's made me cry lately, and I don't like that. Ottawa County was known for decades of collaboration and innovation. We had the best of so many things. We have the potential now to restore that reputation by rebuilding trust in one another and working together effectively. When we were in trouble, there's a lot of, I'm sorry, I will stop.
You can finish your sentence.
No, I think I'll stop.
I'm going to go completely off script here, but I think it reflects what I believe about the democracy that we share. First, I want to thank, again, the League of Women Voters for organizing this forum and for all of the work that they do to make sure that voters have the information that they need, not only about how to vote, but also what their options are. And I think I also want to applaud all of you for being here tonight. It shows a lot of dedication to our community, and I personally really appreciate that. This is, as I think we all know, a pretty consequential election coming up in November, And I think it's really important that we all think about and really commit to all of the levels of our government from local, county, state, and federal levels, because it will make a difference to our future. So I encourage you to not only vote yourself and make your plan, like in the next week, make your plan, but also to find 3, 4, 5 people who you can encourage to vote, because that will also make a difference. And after the election, don't sit back. Don't let your representatives or your commissioners or whoever your elected officials are, don't let them off the hook. Be in touch with them, hold them accountable, and talk to your neighbors, because this is the democracy that we are building together, so let's do it.
I feel that in 2024, we as Americans and as community members here have been faced with a very clear decision. Are we going to continue to move forward, or are we going to watch ourselves be pulled backward? Again, I have watched this community grow, diversify, and innovate in incredible ways in just my lifetime. Unfortunately, I do not see the true values and voices of our communities being represented currently at the state level. We need to fund our public schools, protect our environment, and continue to incentivize our economy, make sure we're making life affordable. Again, we need to ask ourselves, are we going to move forward, or are we willing to move back? And as your next state representative, I look forward to leading our community to a future of inclusivity and success. Thank you.
Thank all of you for being here. We as a leader group to thank you so much. Thank the board officials and also all of you for being here this evening. We thank you so much. If you have questions or have submitted questions and they have not been asked, please see any of the candidates after the meeting today and ask them personally. And now I'd like to turn the forum back to Barb Ferguson for closing remarks.
Well, thank you, Lois, for that pitch. And again, I would like to just reiterate, thank you to the candidates for your wonderful openness in answering all of the questions. Thank you to Marcia for being our moderator, and Paula for keeping us on time, and to all of you for coming and really paying careful attention to the answers. We really appreciate it. So give yourselves a hand and give the candidates another hand. We hope that you've gained some insight into the candidates' positions by their responses and the statements that they've made. You can learn more about these candidates and others by visiting vote411.org, where you can find candidate responses to additional questions. A reminder that the video of this forum will be available on our website and our YouTube channel in a few days. Copyright ownership of the recordings resides with the League of Women Voters, and you cannot use any video recording of the forum or any audio clips for political advertising or other purposes without the written permission of the League of Women Voters. And most of all, remember to vote on Tuesday, November 5th. The polls open at 7 in the morning and close at 8. But there are other options for voting too. All Michigan voters have the option of voting by absentee ballot, and they will become available next week, September 26th. You can return your absentee ballot by mail, and postage is included, or you can return it to a drop box in your voting area. Please, if you do that, try to get your absentee ballot in the mail by October 22nd to be sure that it gets to your clerk in time. Additionally, you can now vote during the early voting period, so you can go in and vote in person at a polling place, and that begins on October 26th and closes 2 days before on November 3rd. More information about requesting an absentee ballot, confirming your voter registration, locating your drop box, hours of early voting, all of that can be found at vote411.org, or you can call your local clerk's office. They have all that information. Also michigan.gov/vote. So our website also has lots of information. It's lwvholland.org. Again, thank you for attending today's candidate forum. Thank you very much.